After receiving the edict from Great Thunderclap Monastery and Dao sect, the crown prince was preparing to kneel and pray to heaven for forgiveness when a loud and clear voice suddenly came from a distance, declaring that the cult master and sacred teacher of the heavenly devil cult had personally issued a decree and asking His Majesty to receive it. The announcement immediately caused a commotion beneath the Temple of Heaven. Everyone present turned toward the direction of the voice, wondering who had arrived and what the heavenly devil cult intended to do. Ling Wuxia took several steps to the stairs of the Temple of Heaven and looked down from his elevated position. He saw a young man approaching with 2 monks and a Taoist nun. The 2 monks appeared weak and unsteady, as though they had suffered greatly, while the Taoist nun seemed to be pregnant, making movement difficult for her. The young man was Qin Mu. Qin Mu smiled as he walked toward the Temple of Heaven and casually addressed Ling Wuxia, saying that the Great Thunderclap Monastery was a sacred ground. The Dao sect was a sacred ground, and his heavenly devil cult was also a sacred ground. Rulai and Dao Master had not personally come, yet Ling Wuxia had still knelt to receive their decrees. Now that Qin Mu himself had personally arrived, Qin Mu asked whether Ling Wuxia would not kneel to welcome him. The moment Qin Mu identified himself as the heavenly devil cult master, a sect master from an influential family suddenly rushed forward, intending to launch a fatal attack against him. Before the attack could reach Qin Mu, a huge flag suddenly appeared beside him from thin air and rolled up, blocking the sect master's attack. When the huge flag unfolded, a formidable man carrying a sword case appeared from within it. A sword light immediately shot out from the sword case and severed the attacking sect master's head. The sword case man then swept up the huge flag and disappeared together with the severed head, leaving behind only the headless corpse of the influential family's sect master. The corpse swayed for a moment before collapsing onto the ground in front of everyone. Qin Mu did not even stop or react to what had happened. He simply continued walking toward the Temple of Heaven. Whenever a guard attempted to make a move against him, a huge flag would appear at the instant the guard moved. From those flags, hall masters, elders, supervisors, and heavenly kings of the heavenly devil cult would materialize. The flags fluttered through the air, appearing and disappearing around Qin Mu's path, and every person who attempted to attack him was violently assassinated. By the time the killing stopped, dozens of headless corpses were scattered across the ground. Qin Mu continued forward with Emperor Yangfeng and the Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor beside him. More huge flags repeatedly appeared and vanished around them, and each time someone attempted to intercept or attack Qin Mu, members of the heavenly devil cult would emerge and kill the attacker. A long trail of headless corpses was therefore left along the path Qin Mu took toward the Temple of Heaven. When Qin Mu reached the front of the Temple of Heaven and was about to ascend the stairs, the crown prince's consort, who had been kneeling below, suddenly made a move against him. However, the instant she acted, she was killed and became another corpse lying on the ground. The sight caused the hair of the envoys, sect masters, cult masters, and heads of the influential families to stand on end. None of them dared to act again. They had all heard for a long time that the heavenly devil cult was the foremost sacred cult of the devil path. But this was the first time many of them had personally witnessed its terrifying methods. The imperial preceptor noticed his wife looking toward the gruesome scene and told her not to look. Qin Mu then calmly began ascending the steps of the Temple of Heaven. At that moment, an eminent monk suddenly shouted that they had been waiting for Qin Mu for a long time and called upon the fellow Taoists present to surround and annihilate the heavenly devil cult master in order to subdue the devil. The monks immediately tore off their official robes, revealing their identities, while the Taoists took out their sword pellets. In an instant, an enormous murderous aura surged through the Temple of Heaven and rushed toward the sky. Despite this, Qin Mu did not stop and continued walking upward. Then, with repeated whooshing sounds, more than 300 huge flags appeared around the Temple of Heaven. 360 hall masters of the heavenly devil cult materialized simultaneously. The 12 cult protector elders, the 2 great cult heavenly kings, and the 8 great supervisors also appeared. The Temple of Heaven immediately erupted into a massive battle. Sounds of slaughter filled the area as the heavenly devil cult and the forces of the Great Thunderclap Monastery and Dao sect clashed. The 8 great supervisors did not immediately attack their opponents. Instead, they surrounded Qin Mu and protected his advance. Around them, cult master-level existences, experts of the life and death realm, and celestial being realm experts fought fiercely. The murderous spirit was so intense that it filled the heavens above the Temple of Heaven. Powerful attacks collided repeatedly, causing the heavens to shake and the earth to crack, while enormous explosions nearly caused the surrounding palaces to collapse. The battle quickly spread beyond the Temple of Heaven. Imperial City fell into complete chaos as the Imperial Guards hurried toward the scene. The capital was also alarmed by the battle, and influential families that had previously remained hidden suddenly revealed their terrifying strength. These influential families attacked the monks and Taoists of the Great Thunderclap Monastery and Tao sect who were attempting to provide support to Imperial City. The reinforcements were trapped and killed on the spot, preventing them from reaching the battlefield. At the same time, General of Heavenly Strategies Qin Jian, High Official Su Yunji, and the other imprisoned officials were still sitting inside the prison when its gates suddenly opened. A prison head appeared and smiled as he informed them that His Majesty had returned and was currently at the Temple of Heaven. Qin Jian and the others were immediately surprised and delighted. They quickly rushed out of the prison and headed toward the Temple of Heaven. As the situation became increasingly chaotic, Heavenly King Yu suddenly shouted loudly, asking where Heavenly King Wei was. A thunderous voice immediately resounded throughout the entire capital, answering that Heavenly King Wei was right there. Duke Wei then leapt from Duke Wei's manor and crashed onto the Temple of Heaven. He was fully armed, completely prepared for battle, and wore a fierce expression as he demanded to know who wanted to die. Meanwhile, Qin Yu continued walking leisurely toward the summit of the Temple of Heaven. The Crown Prince's Grand Preceptor and the others attempted to rush forward and kill him. But Qin Jian and the other officials who had escaped from prison arrived in time and blocked them, with Qin Jian and the others fighting to prevent anyone from interfering. No one was able to stop Qin Emu's footsteps. At the top of the Temple of Heaven, Ling Yusha finally began to show panic. He looked toward the monk and Taoist standing on his left and right, signaling them to act. The two immediately pounced toward Qin Mu. But before their feet could even touch the floor, the 8 great supervisors moved. They slaughtered the 2 attackers instantly, causing their blood to splash across the ground. Ling Yusha then tried to use his position as emperor to command the civil and military officials. He sternly declared that he was the emperor and questioned whether the officials intended to rebel alongside devil path practitioners and disregard his orders. However, his claim to the throne was immediately challenged. Emperor Yangfeng took out and consumed the medicinal pill that Qin Mu had previously given him. The effect was immediate. His hair, which had been altered, grew back, and the knife scar on his face disappeared when he wiped it away. In a solemn voice, Emperor Yangfeng asked Ling Yusha to take a good look at who he was. Ling Yusha's complexion changed drastically when he recognized the former emperor. The Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor also consumed the medicinal pill. His hair likewise grew back, and he wiped away the green birthmark that had disguised his appearance. The civil and military officials had initially been preparing to obey the orders of the new emperor and attack. But once they saw Emperor Yangfeng and the Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor restored to their true appearances, they immediately recognized them, one after another. The officials knelt down and worshipped Emperor Yangfeng and the Imperial Preceptor, refusing to recognize Ling Yusha's claim. Ling Yusha became completely frantic. He rushed toward Emperor Yangfeng and the Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor while repeatedly shouting that he was the Son of Heaven. The 8 great supervisors immediately moved. Each of them struck Ling Yusha once, and the combined attacks caused him to vomit blood. Realizing that he could not win, Ling Yusha suddenly transformed his body into a dragon and soared into the sky. Attempting to escape, the 8 great supervisors immediately lifted their clothes and vanished from their positions. In the next instant, they reappeared and captured Ling Yusha. They restrained him and forced him to kneel at the center of the Temple of Heaven, leaving him unable to escape. Emperor Yangfeng then turned toward the civil and military officials and angrily ordered them to suppress the rebellion. He questioned why they had not already begun killing the rebellious monks and Taoists and asked whether they were waiting for him to personally take action. The officials immediately obeyed. They launched attacks against the monks and Taoists of the Great Thunderclap Monastery and Tao sect, slaughtering the rebels. The Imperial Guards who had rushed to the Temple of Heaven also joined the battle and delivered killing blows against the monks and Taoists. The rebellion was rapidly crushed. At this point, Qin Mu finally reached the top of the Temple of Heaven. Ling Yusha remained kneeling on the ground under the overwhelming pressure of the 8 great supervisors. Unable to break free, Qin Mu approached him and then stooped down, leaning close to Ling Yuxia's ear. In a low voice, Qin Mu told him that everything he had done was not to help Emperor Yangfeng. Instead, Qin Mu had done it for Heavenly King Qian and Heavenly King Lu of the Heavenly Devil cult. Ling Yuxia was stunned by these words. He raised his head and looked at Qin Mu with disbelief, as if unable to understand what Qin Mu meant or why he had acted in this way. Before Ling Yuxia could say anything further, Qin Mu drew the junior protector sword. With a single decisive strike, he beheaded Ling Yuxia. Ling Yuxia's head flew high into the sky. At the same moment, Emperor Yangfeng and the Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor reached the top of the Temple of Heaven and witnessed Qin Mu's final attack. Qin Mu calmly shook the blood from the junior protector sword and returned it to its sheath. Emperor Yangfeng stared at the back of the young man standing before him, and his heart trembled violently. Seeing Qin Mu kill Ling Yuxia without hesitation, shake the blood from his sword, and calmly return it to its sheath filled Emperor Yangfeng with fear. The Imperial Preceptor's wife had also come to the Temple of Heaven. As she watched Qin Mu put his sword back into its sheath while Emperor Yangfeng kept his attention fixed on Qin Mu's back, worry appeared on the young woman's face. The bloody battle at the Temple of Heaven was soon brought under control. The Taoists from Tao sect and the monks from Great Thunderclap Monastery who had managed to escape had already fled, while the rest had been killed. The majority of the two sacred grounds practitioners had died there, and their blood dyed the Temple of Heaven completely red. Blood flowed down from the 999th step all the way to the first step, eventually reaching the feet of the envoys, cult masters, and sect masters gathered below. The Temple of Heaven, a sacred place where tributes were offered to heaven, had now been stained by the blood of the dead. No one knew who had first suddenly dropped to one knee and shouted, "Long live, Your Majesty." However, the cry quickly spread throughout the entire area. At the bottom of the Temple of Heaven, officials, envoys, sect masters, and cult masters all knelt on one knee and shouted together, "Long live, Your Majesty." Emperor Yangfeng stood at the top of the stairs and turned around to face his subjects. He spread his arms and silently accepted their worship. After a moment, he weakly raised his hands and told everyone to rise. The Imperial Preceptor's wife noticed that Qin Mu and the 8 great supervisors, who were standing behind Emperor Yangfeng at the top of the Temple of Heaven, had not knelt. She quietly told the Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor that perhaps it was not necessarily a good thing for Qin Mu to display such overwhelming ability in front of everyone. The Imperial Preceptor glanced at Qin Mu and shook his head. He explained that, to Qin Mu, Eternal Peace was merely a place where he came to gain experience. Even killing the Crown Prince was therefore only part of that experience. Qin Mu did not have many things to worry about. While Emperor Yangfeng still needed Qin Mu's support in many areas, the Imperial Preceptor's wife was surprised by the idea that Qin Mu regarded everything as experience. But the Imperial Preceptor confirmed that this was indeed the case. The Crown Prince's rebellion, however, was a matter of enormous significance. Ling Yuxia had colluded with Tao sect and Great Thunderclap Monastery to plan a rebellion, plotting to kill Emperor Yangfeng and seize the throne for himself. Yet when future historians recorded the incident, the event would be reduced to only a few simple sentences. On the 18th of the second month, Crown Prince Yuxia conspired to rebel. On the 6th of the third month, he was executed. The actual circumstances were too sensitive to be recorded openly. The details were therefore not something outsiders were permitted to know. As time passed, many stories about the rebellion would circulate as popular legends. But most of those legends would contain distorted versions of the truth and could not be relied upon. Following the rebellion, Eternal Peace carried out a bloody purge. The officials who had served under Crown Prince Ling Yuxia had their properties confiscated, and their families were executed. At the same time, the Taoists and monks of Tao sect and Great Thunderclap Monastery who had been captured were detained and sent to the execution grounds. The executions at the food market began on the 7th of the third month and continued until the 1st of the fourth month, only ending after nearly a month of killings. During this period, a strange matter also occurred. The Crown Prince's head could not be found. It had disappeared without leaving any trace. Everyone searched around the Temple of Heaven, but no matter how thoroughly they searched, they could not locate it. Eventually, Emperor Yangfeng did not order anyone to investigate further or dig up the surrounding area. Instead, He issued an imperial decree removing Crown Prince Ling Yuxia's name from the imperial family's genealogical record. Ling Yuxia's birth mother, the former empress who had already died, was also demoted from empress to imperial concubine. After dealing with the aftermath of the rebellion, Emperor Yangfeng began reorganizing the government. He replaced the officials who had been removed and promoted several younger imperial scholars from Imperial College. He also selected capable practitioners and personnel from the various armies to fill the numerous vacant official positions.